Okay. Well, good evening and welcome to Axiom Flux News. Today's date is 11th February 2015. With PJ, Charles, and Stav himself here. I'm going to kick you off with I'm not going to sort of tell you too much about this. All I would do is suggest that people go and watch this video that's on YouTube. And it's Zaporozhia region brilliantly takes down the war and the draft. This guy's here, this officer of the Ukraine army is there to enlist local guys to fight for the Kiev government, junta government, to fight against the separatists, they call them, to the eastern Ukrainians. They're all Ukrainians, by the way, which is the crazy thing about it. Anyway, the thing is, go and watch it, go and find it, because it really, this woman here gets on the microphone and she tells this guy what all these people here believe, and tells him where to go, and tells also where the Kiev government go. And she's saying that she's not going to send her kids, her sons and her husbands to fight against her family members and people in the eastern part of the Ukraine. So I won't say any more about that. Just go and watch it. It's brilliant. It is brilliant. It's not staged. It's not put up. It's just this woman, and she's very brave. So please go and watch that, and then you'll find out what the real Ukrainian people think about what's going on. So I'll move along to this. Right, and this is about the austerity protests, water protests in Ireland, which is very important, and they've had some really big marches, and there's a lot of people against the whole austerity government and what's happened out there and everything with the banks and how they've completely bankrupt what was left of Ireland and shanghaied people into the EU scam of bailouts for the corporate bankers, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, business technocrats that run the EU. As political policing, arrest of Irish anti-austerity activists sparks London solidarity protest. Allegations of political policing are mounted in Ireland following the heavy-handed arrest of swathes of anti-austerity campaigners in Dublin. In a mark of solidarity, a protest will be held outside the Irish Embassy in London. Campaigners will hand staff in the embassy an official letter denouncing what they describe as the Irish government's blatant attack on the democratic right to protest. Critics warn activists and leftist politicians have become the target of politically motivated arrests in Ireland, while corrupt bankers and politicians who brought the state's economy to its knees face impunity. Among those arrested and detained by the police are the three representatives of Ireland's anti-austerity alliance, including Socialist TD MP Paul Murphy. The four men were arrested on Monday in connection with an incident at a community protest in Dublin last November involving Ireland's Minister for Social Protection. A criminal investigation, a criminal investigation regarding the alleged false imprisonment of Minister Joan Burton at the protest is ongoing. Burton's car was reportedly obstructed by campaigners for 2 hours during the demonstration. Additionally, members of the team say they were assaulted as police escorted them from the scene. There's a tweet here by Paul Murphy says Joan Burton hammed up what happened in Jobstown. The protest was organised by the members of Ireland's anti-water charges movement, which opposes the Irish government's recent policy shift on water taxation. Campaigners warn the government's water charges are a veiled austerity tax that many Irish citizens cannot afford to pay. The arrest of Murphy and his fellow campaigners on Monday provoked outrage across Ireland. Allegations waged against the men included the false imprisonment of Burton and her colleagues. After hours of questioning, however, all four were released without charge. Files relating to the matter will be reviewed by Ireland's Director of Public Prosecutions, the DPP. Murphy insists the charges levelled against him and his fellow campaigners are complete nonsense. Following his release from police custody on Monday, he said the arrests were politically motivated and were deliberately orchestrated to damage Ireland's growing anti-water charges movement. The TD for Dublin South West stressed the political manoeuvre specifically targeted the anti-austerity alliance, of which he is a member. The leftist alliance was founded in 2014 and is registered as a political party to contest local elections in Ireland. Says here in a tweet by Paul Reynolds, 10 Gardaí came to arrest a 16-year-old in the dawn raid on behalf of Joan Burton today. On Tuesday, a further 4 people, including a 16-year-old boy, were arrested in connection with November's West Dublin rally. Commenting on the development, Murphy said the anti-water charges activists received the same heavy-handed tactics he had endured on Monday. An additional 33 arrests are reported planned by Irish police as part of the investigation into the minister's alleged false imprisonment. Some media outlets report the number could be as high as 40. Socialist Party TD Joe Higgins said it was outrageous that anti-water charges activists were hauled from their beds by police at dawn. This is completely over the top political policing. The government should answer for it, he said. I'm nearly finished. Ireland's Minister for Agriculture, Simon Coveney, denied that Monday's arrests were politically motivated when probed on Paul Murphy's detention. He claimed police were simply doing their job. Irish Prime Minister Enda Kenny declined to comment when questioned on accusations of political policing. He told the Irish Examiner, however, that Ireland's police run their operations completely independent of the government. Yeah, right. Higgins dismissed Kenny's perspective, warning that the recent spate of dawn arrests are unprecedented in the history of Irish policing and will breed anger and disgust across the nation. The prospect of facing the commodification of water has angered Irish citizens, prompting multiple national demonstrations in recent months. Swathes of protests have highlighted what campaigners stress is double taxation on water services in Ireland. Double dipping, eh? The water charges form part of the Irish government's wider debt repayment strategy in the wake of a grueling bank bailout that cost Irish citizens approximately 70 billion euros, which is 79 billion US dollars. As austerity prevails and unemployment, poverty and homelessness remain rife in Ireland, many citizens maintain they cannot afford the Irish government's water tax. Campaigners say the Irish government's policy shift discriminates against ordinary workers and the unemployed who are already struggling to make ends meet. Higgins describes the water charges as an odious and hated tax that the people of Ireland will not accept. The Socialist Party TD said this week's dawn arrest will serve to intensify Ireland's anti-water charge movements. Wednesday's demonstration outside the Irish Embassy at London's Grosvenor Place is due to begin at 4 p.m. local time. It's being organised by the Socialist Party of England and Wales. The party said the continued persecution of political activists in Ireland will be met with a wave of protest internationally. So we'll watch that tomorrow, PJ and Charles, with interest and see what happens there. I do believe you're looking at another move like Greece pretty soon, and it's going to be Ireland. I really do believe that, because I don't know if you've checked the YouTube videos of the protests, and they've had some big turnouts, and I think it's the end of the line. I think the Irish people have woken up, and actually far more than what the people in the UK mainland has in England. So I see this as a development along the same lines as Greece, and I don't know what's going to happen with Syriza and the new Greek Parliament. I don't know. I do believe that they will out of Europe, and I think Ireland will be. I think Ireland will be soon after. That's what I think. I actually hope so, because I think it'd be best for both of them. But anyway, I don't know what you think, PJ.
Well, they're not going to stop, are they, until somebody starts listening.
Well, look at it as a positive way if you can, because I don't think that they're not going to stand for it, and I think they've lost their grip anyway. Whatever Ireland had over their people, should we say the administration and the rest of it, with the tapes done it. The Bank of Ireland tapes, didn't it? I mean, did you ever listen to those, PJ?
I may have done. I'm not sure which ones you're talking about.
Oh, just basically where they was telling, basically telling the people they were taking them for a ride, with the bailout and everything. Basically, we'll have to ask Kevin more about it. He knows more about it than me. But it was just basically like, look, we're going to pocket the money. It's a good deal for us bankers, basically, but not for the people. But don't tell them. You know what I mean? Oops, sorry. Did this tape get leaked out? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you can, like, I follow on the Turner website and on Facebook page to keep up with the Irish water.
If you look at what's really happening in the whole world, it seems that governments are purposely being antagonistic towards the people, that trying to fuel so much, and they come out and they become out of control and they go to the street, and then they can use that opportunity to show, like, oh, see how out of control, and give them the excuse to establish more laws or more legislations or martial law, if you will, to kind of take more rights away from people. Like, if you look throughout the whole world, even here, I live in Canada, you see how the governments are just blatantly just doing things, obviously, to kind of divide people and get people to go out of control and to go to the streets, and so therefore they have the excuse to actually say, well, we don't have to go to the doors, we don't have to knock down doors or anything. People are coming to the streets, so therefore they can make all these mass arrests, do all this stuff, like like right now these people are being arrested for protesting austerity measures of, like, hey, like, that's ridiculous. You're going to tax me for water, which is my right as a human being, as all beings that should have access.
Oh yes, Charles, but not once.
Only
They're
that,
going to tax them twice.
Yeah, it's double dipping.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that they're
taxing twice.
be going overboard with this, and so therefore it actually fuels more anger. Is that when someone like slaps you once in the face, okay, you can kind of take it at one time, but when someone exaggerates and slaps you like 10 times, then it makes the person become angry, and then all of a sudden what happens is they become out of control. And that at that point now it's like, oh, when people step into the spectrum of seeing what's happening, they only see the person that's out of control, but they don't see that what the bully did before. So of course the person's looked at as, well, they're the crazy one, but they don't see what happened before that hey, buddy was like rattling the cage and poking the stick and so on and so on. So of course I look at governments right now as being highly antagonistic, and same thing with the police officers are being pushed to do certain things, to be antagonistic towards the people in order to push a certain agenda of putting in these laws of saying, oh, well, see how the people are out of control? They need us. They need our government. They need us to actually, set the laws and put them in order. Because look, if we're not here, then there's going to be chaos, and there's going to be.
Yeah, I think that there's a difference this time, Charles. I think people are not going to buy that. Even that's right. Even if they wheeled out their special ops, MRAPs, and militarised police, I still don't think that's enough now to stop a revolt of the people in these small countries. Remember, I'm talking about Greece, and I'm talking about Ireland, perhaps Portugal. So I think that they know that's going to happen. They know that's going to happen, Charles. But what the fact of them, a lot of them are saying, look, I'd rather die standing up than be, on my knees to these people.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, of course, the other way they look at it is, they've been given the MPs and the system that they should follow, but obviously, it's not able to work. So what else are they left to do?
Unfortunately, yeah, and we can see that if that did come about, no side's going to give up, and it's going to be bloody. It's going to be dreadful. But I think in the end, you're not going to get a meeting of minds, and a revolution or something like that. People are just going to say, well, we ain't got no choice anymore. We ain't got money. We're completely bankrupt. We cannot pay your taxes. I'm not going to just stand here and let you grab me and drag me away and put me in a labour camp.
We've got no
because
money.
that's basically what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So people are going to say, well, I'd rather die standing up because I'm not going to, be on my knees as a slave to you. It's not going to happen, man. Because living like that's going to be worth dying and standing up for something I believe in. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking at. I think they're not, I know we go on about people being awake now. I think there are a lot more people awake now than I thought, because I read blogs, I read events, you look at protests, you look at people, you see what they're saying. I think that, if it's inevitable, it's going to happen, but it's not going to be stopped by either side, or if there's a revolution against the powers that be or whatever. I think it's gone too far, Charles.
Oh, I totally agree. Is that that's the agenda is essentially so organized in the sense that I think they really know the psychology of the masses of people, and we're talking about people waking up. Well, it's great, and I think there's a lot of progression in that sense. Is that a lot more as the days progress, more people are becoming more conscious as not being conscious, and the problem I see with that is that a lot of people are just not organized. Is that imagine the person that's been doing this for 10 years, that's been doing the research and being on board and finding out, hey, look, there's a lot of problems. This is what's been happening. Well, the first stage is essentially anger. People get angry, right? They see, oh, well, the government has been doing that. Oh, how dare they? So it stems anger. And so now you put that in the mix with people that actually went through, let's say, the 5 stages of grievance of, now they're actually at the acceptance part, and now they're actually working on the solution, where now you have to deal with people that are actually out of control in the anger part. It kind of takes you a bit back, right? But at the same time, it could maybe, hey, well, I'm ahead of the game. Well, look, it's okay. Don't get angry. I know it's pissing you off. I know it's bad, and the government seems to be so really arrogant about what they're doing. But just do the research, get informed, learn about certain things, learn about the history, learn about law, learn about psychology, learn about yourself, and then you'll be a better tool, a better weapon, if you will, to be able to add to the pool of solutions as compared to becoming a problem. Because if you have people that are extreme, because that's what's going to happen. A lot of people are going to have extreme views about this. They're going to go to the street and start, maybe killing officers or killing MPs, which that's not what you want. Because once you start doing that, then
but Charles, how do you expect somebody to concentrate when they've got no water?
Well, no, exactly. That's the thing, is that it's very well designed when they do these kinds of things. Is we think that, if you look at the masses of people, they're not as organized as these people that are in government and the police. I mean, they've been doing nothing but research and spending billions upon billions of dollars to see how people react to certain things, such as using social networks like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all these things that they're using as tools to gather information to see how people react in the masses. As compared to the masses, we don't have that. We don't have those tools of being able to see how the people's psychology works and emotions and so on. So we're pretty much disorganized, and we're fighting up against a giant that's organized. It's like you take 5 samurais that know themselves and know how to fight, and you put them up against 1,000 men that are just angry, all over the place, not even communicating with each other. There's a good chance these 5 samurais will be able to take out a lot of those people that are disorganized, right? So when it comes to these things, you can see the psychology.
It's a David and Goliath.
Exactly, right? But imagine David was actually very well organized, because he learned about different solutions of using a stone and a rock and a sling it, and to be able to get to him, because the guy was 36 feet tall. So he knew that, well, he has to climb up to his head, which is the weakest part of his body, or the second weakest part of his body. But if he didn't have that organization and know about that, then he probably would have got stomped by Goliath. As compared to if you organize and people get, instead of getting angry, you get even, and the way you get even is essentially getting informed, knowing about the solutions out there, learning about how there's a lot of people that are online right now within communities that are trying to gather and unite people with the consensus of, hey, we need to unite and say what's important here. Is it the economy? Is it money? Is it upkeeping this government that's constantly giving us problems? Or, hey, is the water important? Is the food, the environment, all these things that actually are real? Well, let's concentrate on that and organize together, and therefore we can actually have a chance as compared to just being divided within, you know, all the ideas.
I'm totally with you on that one.
Well, the other thing is if the revolution or whatever it is where people said they've had enough is mainly peaceful, how much can the compartmentalized plebeians that serve the elites, how many killings can they do before they turn around and go, I'm sick of this, this ain't right?
Well, that's the thing, is like you don't want you don't want anyone to die, you don't want people to get hurt, but unfortunately that's the thing, is the progress sometimes people are going to get hurt. I mean, if, you know, I'm a martial artist myself, and I mean, progress means that sometimes I'm going to get injured, and I'm going to learn from that injury, right? And sometimes, you know, it's not up to like me to say to someone, okay, go put your life on the line and die for this cause. I have no right to ask anyone to do that. Is that they themselves, if they make that decision to be a martyr, then that's their decision. So, you know, we can feel bad and say, well, look, hey, you know what, that was horrible, and this guy actually went and tried to stand up to these police, so therefore, hey, that could fuel a spark, a debate, or people to actually get to the street and say, hey, you know what, that was wrong. That police officer, or those police officers that beat that child or that person, well, you know what, we're going to hold them accountable. How can we do that? Well, we know if we go and use violence against them, well, they're going to come back with bigger guns and all this stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's why I wouldn't have the violence. I'd have nothing to do with the violence, but I'd be prepared to stand there, and if I have to be knocked down, baton charged, or banged on the head, or face the tyranny, violent tyranny, if that's what they're going to fight you with, then so be it. So, you know, or whatever. I'd rather do that if it came down to that. Of course, it doesn't have to come down to any of that with any of this, because people have just got to stand up and say, enough's enough. We've got no money. We've got this austerity or whatever it is. I think that's what's people are doing in Ireland. They're just saying, look, we ain't got it. You can't have it. It's not right, and we're not standing for it. So, you know, you'll have to do whatever you're going to do.
Well, they're going to continue. They're going to continue to try and get blood out of stone and, you know, sweat out the body.
Well, that's right. That's it at the end of the day. But if you have non-compliance, then it's non-compliance, and then, you know, it's entirely in their hands. Right. And then obviously it's their consciousness that they'll have to battle with, if they've got any.
Well, the thing is too, is a good way to get at these people, like, you know, let's say the politicians or the police or whatever, is if they're standing up and doing bad things, well, in the community, let's say they band together. It's like you have let's say you have a coffee shop or a restaurant or a grocery shop. Well, what you do is you put up, you know, flyers all over the place of the faces of these police officers, and then you refuse to service them. It's like, okay, well, you're not welcome here. You're causing these kinds of problems, and well, we're not going to use violence, but we're going to use exile. Essentially, is that, well, when you come in the community, every time you come in here, we're going to call you out. We're going to hold you accountable. We're going to tell you, hey, you know, what you did to that kid or what you did to that woman or that man, that was wrong, and you should be ashamed of yourself. And if not just one, but everyone gets together and makes it very prevalent and clear that every time someone does something bad like that, essentially they will be held accountable in that sense. Is that, well, look, you're not going to be able to come in my coffee shop anymore, and you're not going to be able to go do groceries there. You're part of the community. Well, guess what? Not anymore. So you have to move. So therefore, you know, these police will have to change cities, and therefore they can't do these kind of problems. Same thing with the MPs and so on. And also is like when you look at the, you know, prime ministers and all these things, we vote for them, right? Essentially, there's voting process. It's a democratic thing. What people don't realize is when you go and vote, and everyone goes along with it, like the majority of people, is that you're essentially saying with this vote, well, whatever decisions they're doing for the next 4 years is okay with me, and I sign and consent to it. So these politicians actually feel that they're obligated or they're justified in doing what they're doing. And if you protest, well, hey, look, you voted. You actually consented to this. Your signature's right there, and you voted. Here's your ballot number or whatever. So you were okay with everything that I said, and now that you're protesting, well, now what changed?
Well, over here, Charles, in UK, I mean, our the coalition that got in, we were an elected.
No, there's no mandate.
There's no mandate. So basically, you know, it's no taxation.
Without representation.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that they believe in their illusions as compared to people that are informed and know better. You know, they can see through the illusion. That's the frustrating thing, is trying to find the solution to see how can we hold these people accountable, and also get, you know, the police are the ones that are essentially, you know, in the middle that are protecting these people, right? So how can we get them on board with us? You know, try to find a solution of, you know, using seduction over destruction. That, yeah, maybe they're violent, out of control, but maybe if we try to approach them in a humanitarian way, is that we go see them at their homes, find out where do they live, and you go in not just alone, you go with, let's say, 10, 20, 30, even 100 people. You show up right at their home, and you say, hey, look, we're here to reach out. We're all humans here. We're all brothers and sisters. We feel that these things are bad, and you know what? When you go and stand on the line, I know it's your job, and we understand that. We're not trying to cause you any problems, but when you do that, you're causing all of us problems, which I think we'd agree is that 100 people versus one person, or you're, let's say, 30 people that are part of the police station or whatever the number is, I think we outnumber you, so therefore I think you should get on board with us, because we're not all happy, and I think the community is based on the fact that it's an exchange of energy, that everyone should be happy and comfortable and have access to water and food and all these kinds of things. And when the balance is tipped, well, there's going to be problems. So we're here to share, to reach out to you, to say, hey, look, you're our brother. We know that you're trying to do your job and trying to protect these people, but here's the facts. Look at this and make your decision. And then you give them the chance to try to see, hey, you know what? Hey, like, this is really bad. I think, you know, there's things I didn't know, because a lot of these police officers are put in situations where they're overworked. They're stressed out. They're dealing with people that are really, you know, like sometimes the criminals that they deal with, they see such nonsense that it corrupts them in a sense, and they don't have the time to actually gain the research. They think that the police station and the, you know, like all the training that they get is essentially that's what it is, and there's nothing else to it, as compared to, well, the main people. When we go on the internet, when we have time, we're able to do some research and see the different spectrums where they're within a certain community that sets a certain doctrine that they believe, and then, oh, well, hey, we're the family, we got to protect each other, and he's my brother and she's my sister because, well, we're police officers and we have the same job. But they forget that they're also part of the community as well. Before they're police officers, they are in fact part of the community. And I think that's the big problem with politicians, police officers, all these people that are in government positions, that they fail to realize that they're actually part of the community before they're actually part of their little brother group or whatever, their little brotherhood going on, right?
Yeah.
And so if we can reach out in a seductive way, I think there's going to be more chances of getting them on par with us as compared to, and I understand, it's like, you know, it's frustrating. You see what's going on, and you're being caused a lot of injury, or you're caused, like, hey, someone telling you, well, you double taxed on your water. That's not fun. That's not. You know,
I think that image on Andy's screen says it all. Look at that. I think the polar bear got it right.
Right.
He's on his own.
Yeah,
away from it. I think his boat's away.
Yeah, there's the community, as I know it, Charles. I'm not quite a bit older than yourself and PJ. The communities that we had in the 60s and 70s are not the same as any communities that people think of as communities today. Oh, even then, the community spirit we had, we didn't need a police constable on our estate. We didn't need security cameras on our estate. We didn't need any of the nonsense Big Brother of today on our estate in those days, because communities were communities.
Mm-hmm.
And of course that was all completely knocked and taken away by a certain Mrs. Thatcher when she came in, and the rest is history. So basically, you know, if people today, they talk about communities, they're compartmentalized communities, they're communities that are being told from the powers that be that what a community is. It's nothing like that at all. Not a proper community where people take care of people. You don't need security officers. You don't need this. People looked after people themselves. Neighbours looked after neighbours. People looked after people. And it was so much better. There was far more morals, standings and things like that. Even in my time as a young person, obviously it wasn't fantastic. There was the corruption in the system, and it's all coming out now with what's going on with the scandals and the paedophilia and establishments and whatever. That was rife in those days. It wasn't perfect, but the people, communities were communities. It wasn't that long ago. But anyway, I better move on. Otherwise, it's gonna get on. This is a story, it's an article, about global warming, and it's all about the data that's new evidence has come out by this chap, and it pretty much reverses it 180 degrees, which they're not going to admit to it, but I mean. Anyway, I'll read you the article, see what you think. Global warming data manipulation, greatest scientific scandal of all time. There's the old polar bear and his little bit of ice. New data suggests that the vanishing polar ice caps may not be the result of global warming, and that 60 years' worth of temperature data has been used to justify the man-made global warming hypotheses have been tampered with on a huge scale. The Telegraph reports, when the future generations look back on the global warming scale of the past 30 years, nothing will shock them more than the extent to which the official temperature records on which the entire panic ultimately rested were systematically adjusted to show the Earth as having warmed much more than the actual data justified. 2 weeks ago, under the headline, "How We Are Being Tricked by Flawed Data on Global Warming," I wrote about Paul Homewood, who on his Not a Lot of People Know That blog had checked the published temperature graphs for 3 weather stations in Paraguay against the temperatures that had originally been recorded. In each instance, the actual trend of 60 years of data had been dramatically reversed, so that a cooling trend was changed to one that showed a marked warming. This was only the latest of many examples of a practice long recognised by expert observers around the world, one that raises an ever larger question mark over the entire official surface temperature record. Following the last article, Homewood checked a swathe of other South American weather stations around the original 3. In each case, he found the same suspicions, one-way adjustments. First, these were made by the US government Global Historical Climate Network, GHCN. They were then amplified by 2 of the main official surface records, the Goddard Institute for Space Studies and the National Climate Data Center, NCDC, which used the warming trends to estimate temperatures across the vast regions of the Earth where no measurements are taken. Yet these are the very records on which scientists and politicians rely for their belief in global warming. Homewood has now turned his attention to the weather stations across much of the Arctic between Canada, 51 degrees west, and the heart of Siberia, 87 degrees east. Again, in nearly every case, the same one-way adjustments have been made to show warming up to 1 degree C or more higher than was indicated by the data that was actually recorded. This has surprised no one more than Troust Johnson, who was long in charge of the climate research for the Iceland Met Office, and with whom Homewood has been in touch. Johnson was amazed to see how the new version completely disappears Iceland's sea ice years around 1970, when a period of extreme cooling almost devastated his country's economy. One of the first examples of these adjustments was exposed in 2007 by statistician Steve McIntyre when he discovered a paper published in 1987 by James Hansen, the scientist, later turned fanatical climate activist, who for many years ran GISS. Hansen's original graph showed temperatures in the Arctic as having been much higher around 1940 than at any time since. But as Homewood reveals in his blog post, temperature adjustments transform Arctic history. GISS has turned this upside down. Arctic temperatures from that time have been lowered so much that they are now dwarfed by those of the past 20 years. Homewood's interest in the Arctic is partly because the vanishing of its polar ice, polar bears, has become such a poster child for those trying to persuade us that we are threatened by runaway warming. But he chose that particular stretch of the Arctic because it is where ice is affected by warmer water brought in by cyclical shifts in a major Atlantic current. This last peaked at just the time 75 years ago when Arctic ice retreated even further than it has done recently. The ice melt is not caused by rising global temperatures at all. Of much more serious significance, however, is the way that this wholesale manipulation of the official temperature record, for reasons GHCN and GISS have never plausibly explained, has become the real elephant in the room of the greatest and most costly scare the world has known. This really does begin to look like one of the greatest scientific scandals of all time. So there you go. So we all know that they mess with figures and doctrine and that to propagate what they want the world to be and do. And the global warming is one of the biggest elephants in the room. And knowing what I know and the little solar cycles that I've experienced in my 50.5 years of living here on Earth, it justifies me to thinking that actually there's more likely of a cooling to happen from perhaps this year, next year onwards, because there is no doubt in my mind that that temperatures are cyclical, and they can be cyclical for 100 years, they can be cyclical again thousands of years or whatever. But there is one little interesting thing that even the mainstream scientists agree on, and all of them agree on, is that this present solar cycle that we're going through is only half the size of what they predicted. This present one, this maximum at the moment, which is just coming to an end and we're going to slip off the hill. They think by the way that they've looked at the magnetic polar reversal and everything else on the sun that happens during the sunspot maximum, that the next cycle will be very, very small, if non-existent at all. And there's sufficient evidence to lead people to look into that. We will be going through not a mini ice age, all this is scaremongering words or whatever, but a cooling period rather than a warming period. And there's not so much going to be a lot of eggs on people's faces, but it's going to be. It's not going to be what these people think it's going to be, because to say that the solar energy has no effect on global warming. I mean, what is the sun? Where does the heat come from? Where do the rays come from? If the sun is going to go for a quiet period where there's going to be hardly any solar cycles for the next 70 years or 60 years, which happened during the Little Ice Age, whatever you call it, just after the medieval warming period, more the minimum they call it. Societies today are so fragile that, like the UK, will not exist. It won't exist, Pooja. There'll be no society here.
Well, I've been monitoring what you've been presenting and, weighing things up, and, I'm strongly considering the same. My conclusion is this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, and of course where Charles is. if these temperatures do drop like this, you're looking at almost Arctic wasteland, Toronto.
Well, if I look at the global warming thing, is that look, it's a lot of research been doing into that. I don't really believe in global warming as compared to climate change. Climate change is essentially has been shown to be a natural cycle of the planet.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And so global warming is the whole data and everything it's based on is essentially that humans, with the way we are living, is causing global warming with all the emissions, gas emissions, and petroleum and all that stuff, right?
Mm.
So the way I look at it is like, yeah, it could be a lot of nonsense and all data manipulation, which I think is just another way to, we're talking about taxing people for water. Well,
carbon,
there's another way
it's carbon. It's the carbon tax.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So, if you look at Al Gore and how when he came out with that Inconvenient Truth documentary, I mean, that was very powerful in the sense that it got a lot of people on board with the whole idea. Which, you know what, it's not entirely bad, because I think as people, as a civilization here on this planet, we need to be more responsible when it comes to the impact that we have on our environment. So, in a sense, I look at global warming as a good tool to get people to be more responsible. But at the same time, is when you base it on lies, then what are you doing is you're essentially, coercing people to get on board with a thing. And now you're going to hold the people accountable as compared to the corporations and establishments that are in fact producing and selling us these products that are in fact bad for the environment. But now you're going to cause us to actually pay taxes for it, where it should be the other way around. It's like, look, we should be holding all the corporations and establishments that are producing these products for us to make life a little easier or whatever, to be more environmentally friendly. Because, I mean, it could be that, hey, if we do get stupid with this, global warming can be a reality. Okay, theoretically, that could be something that comes into effect, maybe not in this generation, maybe not the next, but future down the line. So, of course, let's be responsible today, so therefore we don't have to clean up the mess later, right? So, looking at the global warming thing is that, if it's based on lies, and you're not, instead of going on lies, why not just say, look, we know the impact on the environment is not the best. There is a lot of pollution. I mean, if you really look at the fashion industry, I mean, holy mac, like they cause a lot of environmental pollution, such as the water and the air and all that kind of stuff. And so, hey, let's keep people accountable, such as these big corporations that make billions of money, billions. They're the ones that have the power and the resources to be able to fix these things, as compared to the people that are pretty much divided or not as organized. It's a lot harder to keep us accountable, and we're actually making a lot less money these days. That now you're gonna, charge us carbon taxes. You're gonna make it, well, you have to buy this and make it more expensive to go green. Like, see, these are the things that you can see that when you're pushing a certain agenda, is again, it's all about the profit, about how the people at the top of the pyramid are essentially trying to find all these problems, they manufacture these problems, and then sell us the solution after. It's lunacy. It's just crazy, and we just go on board with it, thinking that, well, things are going to get better, and these corporations and our governments have our best interests at hand, which in fact they don't. They're just trying to milk it as much as they can, and global warming is another example of how manipulative and deceitful our governments and establishments and corporations are. And we need to wake up to this, and we need to be responsible and accountable individually, but at the same time, if we concentrate on that and we get together, then we're able to get these corporations and governments to be accountable as well, right?
Yeah.
I'd
just like to say though, Charles, I don't think I've seen enough to say it's global cooling as such, Shanda.
It's not what?
I said I don't think I've seen enough to say that it's actually global cooling.
Yeah, well, again, it's words, you see.
Yeah, I don't think it's any.
It's like global warming, global cooling. Climate change is cyclical. It's going to happen. It doesn't matter what man does, unless he blows the Earth to smithereen in some, thermal nuclear war. But then the Earth will go on anyway without the human beings. It will, and it probably will. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what words you use it as. Climate change, as Charles said, is a natural thing. It goes through these changes, and it doesn't matter about man burning CO2. We had global warming in the medieval period. You grapes, wines, all sorts of stuff, things that you can't grow here now. They grew in medieval England because of a warming period. There was no burning of emissions, carbon, hydrocarbons, or whatever you want to call them. There was no CO2 emissions then, but there was global warming beyond the point what we got supposedly now. But now we find out they're only rigging the data, and it's a load of nonsense anyway. But fact of the matter is, the temperatures were warmer during that period of England, much warmer than it is today. But there was no there was no CO2 emissions.
No.
So the whole thing is, but yes, we have to look after the planet. Yes, we have to be responsible. We don't have to do the things that we're doing, which are, GMO, genetically modifying things on the planet when there's no need to. When naturally looking after the planet for our ancestors to come after, so they can enjoy a life as it's meant to be, or natural existence as it's meant to naturally be, and let the world evolve universally which way it does, and it'll go through its cyclical thing. But I do believe, just from what I know, I may be wrong, of course, everybody gets things wrong, but I do lean towards a cooling of the temperature. Now, if that happens, you're going to have whole swathes of North America not being habitable in this modern society world. It will stop.
Yeah, but it won't be global though.
No, society will have to move closer throughout the world to the equator. Well, that's more people moving to less areas of the land.
Yeah.
That's more competition for the elite. It's more strain on modern civil society, and I do believe they actually know this is going to happen. So, but my theory is that within 5 years, I think within 5 years, I'll put my neck on the line. Why not? I don't care. I've got nothing to prove, but my opinion is that within 5 years, you won't recognise this global warming fiction thing. Everybody will be laughing their nuts off at it. But society will be markedly changed completely from what it is now. I know that.
Great. Thanks for your articles there.
Anyway, yes, a bit heavy and a bit long. Sorry it took so long, but there we go.
No worries.
Sharing the old screen. But that's just my opinion. That's what you asked me on for, PJ.
Yeah. All right, Charles.
Very, very interesting. There are important things to talk about because, I mean, it's, our planet. This is a beautiful, beautiful place to live, and we got to take care of it, right? So it's good.
All right, Charles, over to you when you're ready.
Okay, well, I'm just going, you sent me some links there, I read, so we got letter from captivity. I'm not breaking down. U.S. aid worker who died while being held hostage by ISIS wrote that she misses her family, adding, "Don't fear for me." This, when I look at these kinds of articles, I have to really use critical thinking and seeing, like, is this manufactured to get people to be sympathetic towards this whole cause of, to fight ISIS and all this stuff? I don't really give much credibility or easy credit to these articles that fast, because, I mean, is it true? Is it not true? I mean, she wrote a nice letter here saying that she's been well treated, that she's been detained, mostly talking about how, God is essentially the only thing we have is God in the end, and that being imprisoned, she felt that sometimes even when you're in prison, you can actually be free. And so this letter, when you look at it, here I'm going to read a bit. Everyone, if you're receiving this letter, it means I am still detained, but my cellmates, starting from, well, have been released. I have asked them to contact you, plus send you this letter. It's hard to know what to say. Please know that I am safe. I'm in a safe location, completely unharmed, plus unhealthy. She actually put on a little bit of weight, she says. I have been treated with the utmost respect and kindness. I wanted to write you all well, though out letter, but I didn't know if my cellmates would be leaving in the coming days or the coming months, restricting my time. But primarily, I couldn't only but write the letter a paragraph at a time. Just the thought of you all sends me into a fit of tears. See, like, when you start reading it, a lot of red flags kind of raise up to me. I don't really want to read the whole thing because, I mean, a lot of you could actually just kind of read it, but it's all these things I see that, okay, maybe she is held captive, maybe this is the truth, and this is actually happening. But if you look at the past, where ever hear about the whole Jessica Lynch story, where she actually, you know, supposedly she fight off all these insurgents, and you know, she saved the whole crew, her whole teammates or squad mates, and then later on ended up being that it was all fake. It wasn't true. It wasn't, you know, they all manufactured this event just to get more sympathy or to get women to join the military and so on, right? So when I look at these things about ISIS right now, about these letters and all these things to get sympathy, to want to fight ISIS or to push a certain agenda or whatever, especially when in the mainstream media, you have to really think and investigate for your own and see the different spectrums of what people think about all this. ISIS right now, for me, when I look at the whole idea of what's happening in the Middle East with ISIS and being Islamic, there's nothing really that proves to me that everything they say about it is the truth, because, I mean, you look at the beheading videos, a lot of people have really debunked it, where I'm more lenient to think that those were actually a Hollywood production, if you ask me. So it comes back again to these stories, is this trying to, like, these agendas to try to help get us on board with by appealing to our hearts, our emotions, to get us to get angry or sympathize, or, you know, whatever they're trying to get people on board with, right? And it's never really objective when they put these things out. It's just more like you can see there's a certain path they want people to go along with, right? So I don't know what you see what I'm saying is essentially that you know, this should have never become your burden. I have asked these women to support you. Please seek their advice if you have not done so already. On contact, who may have certain level of experience with these people. None of us could have known it would be this long, but no, I am also fighting from my side in the ways I am able. I have a lot of fight left inside of me. So, you know, again, you're saying redacted. Well, again, it's been edited. It's been kind of played with, right? So, I can't really give these things credibility. You know, it's just not. I don't know for a fact this is truth or not. I don't know how you guys.
It sounds like she's, you know, still got a bit of determination, or quite a lot, with sounds of things. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is the reason why, you know, to do with this global warming, and for all we know, maybe ISIS is to keep us away from equator.
Yeah.
It could be. Well, the thing I would say about the ISIS, right? If you do a little bit of research, I guess you guys have done it, but correct me if I'm wrong, the ISIS, Islamic State, whatever they want to call it, like, came out of the al-Nusra, and al-Nusra were with the Free Syrian Army, or whatever they call themselves, in Syria. They morphed from insurgents, or should we say, the supposed backed Libyan free whatever they were fighters, which morphed from the Al Qaeda from Afghanistan, which morphed from mujahideen from the Sunni side of Saudi Arabia and Yemen and that. And when Albert came on when we was having our chat, and he was talking about Muslims and Islam. Now Charles may know more about this, but I'm not au fait on any of this really. But is there not two practices of the hadith in the Quran? One is by the Sunnis and one is by the Shias. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. There's two beliefs. One is they believe that Muhammad essentially is a prophet. Is actually the prophet of Muhammad, and then the other ones believe in the cousin of the prophet of Muhammad, or it's divided between certain ideologies that I'm not that clear with myself. Like when it comes to Islam, I haven't really done like a lot of studying into it, but I can understand that. Look, with all religion, there's a lot of division within all of it. So it's all just these ideologies that they try to push forth, and then it's like causes more division within the division within more division, and then they try to find the boogeyman and say, well, these guys are more dangerous than these guys, or these guys, but they always end up changing teams. It's like watching soccer or watching the sports. It's like they're always trading players. And it's like, oh, well, now these guys are our allies, and then, oh, well, 2 years later, now they're not our allies anymore. It's like, look at Saddam Hussein. He was funded by the U.S., United States government. They helped him get all the weapons. Why? Because, well, he was able to keep the Middle East in check. Pretty much they feared Saddam Hussein, and so they funded him, helped him, and then all of a sudden when Saddam Hussein wasn't playing ball with them and pushing their agendas, well, then they decided, well, we're going to send in the jackals to assassinate him, but he was so well protected that they couldn't do it. Then they say, okay, well, he's not going to go through economic means neither. Well, then we'll send in the army, and that's what happened. Is that essentially the war in Iraq was, if ever you listen, one guy that should really give you some insight about that is John Perkins. He wrote a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, which explains how they operate. Is that there's always one guy is like, oh, well, he's our ally, and ISIS, if you look at the whole idea of it behind it, is that they were allies in the beginning. They were helping the United States, like they come from Al-Qaeda and all these kinds of things. And, oh, well, Sue Sturd needs, oh, well, Al-Qaeda now are not our enemy anymore. They're our friends, and then, oh, now they're enemies. So if you look at it, I mean, even with Syria, they've been funding and helping Al-Qaeda, giving them weapons, and then, oh, you hear them in the news saying, oh, Al-Qaeda this, Al-Qaeda is bad, but then they're helping them with fighting Syria. It's all this confusion with these different, states of Islam, different beliefs or whatever, that makes it that, well, we don't even know who the enemy is. We think we know. Now they've been able to kind of, let's say, universalize it with ISIS, where, okay, well, that's the common threat now is ISIS, where before it was Al-Qaeda. Now it's ISIS. All people that are Islamic now, while they're under ISIS. Well, no, not everyone that's Muslim are on board with the agenda of ISIS. And if you're a Muslim, a true Muslim, you're not going to really take on a pharaonic deity as a name. Okay, the pharaohs are not friends of the Muslims, of Christians, okay, or the Jews. They were they were enemies of these people, and for them to take on that name, it goes to show you, if you learn about the symbols behind all that stuff, it relates all to the ideas of ISIS. Because I mean, here in Canada, we actually have ISIS in front of our Supreme Court. When you go to court, Lady Justice is ISIS. So this whole idea of saying, well, ISIS is a threat, yeah, you know what? ISIS is a threat. She's a threat to a lot of us in many ways. So I don't know. Maybe ISIS is a way to kind of get us to demonize, a deity or a certain god or whatever, or is it just maybe to make it all put together where people say, well, hey, this is what the threat is now, and that's it, and whatever they put on the television. Especially in the United States and Canada, a lot of people don't really do any kind of their own research. They just believe whatever they see on television, and you should see how people actually are just as bad in the way they talk about the people of ISIS or the people in Iraq is, oh, well, they beheaded people, well, they should all burn and die and bomb them back to the Stone Age, and it's all violence, which they're just as extreme. So it's again, it's another method of creating either a artificial boogeyman, or maybe it's actually a real boogeyman that they manufactured through, antagonizing these people in the Middle East to get them to rise up against them, and so therefore they have more reason to go to war, which, look at the military-industrial complex. It's one of the biggest grossing companies in the world. The corporations, they make billions upon billions of dollars going to war, manufacturing all these weapons of mass destruction and so on. And then, next thing you know, their partners such as Halliburton and all these other companies go into the countries to rebuild it and set up their embassies and set up all these companies and so on. So to me, I look at it as like, well, it's all just for profit. It's just a big war game, like playing Command and Conquer on your computer, or playing a game of chess, but with actual people's lives. And most people won't even do their research. They're not even going to investigate and try to use their critical thinking to see, well, what's the truth. They just go along. They just say, oh, well, there's the ISIS. There's the boogeyman. Hitler had the SS. Now Iraq has the ISIS. Well, those two S's seem to come up a lot.
It seems to be a common thing. I often think of certain things that people say. I mean, I know history, as a lot of people say, is always written by the victorious or the victor or whatever, but I know America had a part to play in the First World War, but really I think the Second World War was the bigger part. And I think also when Japan came into the war, and there was words spoken by Admiral Yamamoto, who was leaving Pearl after they destroyed Pearl Harbor, attacked Pearl Harbor. He said something of the words like, we've awoken a sleeping giant as regards the American military-industrial complex. I think that's what he meant. Not so much we've awoken a sleeping giant against Japan, but he meant totally. That's what I think Yamamoto meant by his words. Interesting.
Well, like when you said that, also, like if you know a bit about the history of Pearl Harbor and how that came to be, is the United States were in fact they had a lot of sanctions against Japan, and they were actually, again, being antagonistic to try to provoke them, right?
It was the oil embargo, wasn't it?
That's right. There was an oil embargo against Japan, and so essentially the United States, it's not necessarily the people, because when you looked at the people of the United States, they didn't want to be part of the war. For the Second World War, they didn't want nothing to do with it. If you look at the votes and how people were taking polls and seeing, well, people weren't going for it. So they needed reason to get into the war. Why? Well, look, the United States, I mean, since the First World War, they became pretty advanced for a lot of things militarily. I mean, they had a pretty good naval fleet, air force, all these things. And so the military-industrial complex and the bankers and all these people, essentially, they want to profit from that, because if the United States, because well, if you understand about how the banking came to be in the United States back in 1913, I believe.
Yeah, the Federal Reserve, yeah.
How the Federal Reserve came to be is that if the United States went to war, well, that means they had to borrow more money from the Federal Reserve, which meant that, well, the bankers were going to make money. And who are the bankers in cahoots with? Well, the military-industrial complex. If you look at the names that come up, these were all friends. They're all part of the same club. So they're all complementing each other in the sense, well, let's provoke Japan to attack us. And Australia actually warned the United States that there was a huge Japanese fleet heading towards Hawaii, and President President at the time wasn't Eisenhower, it was
Roosevelt.
Who was it?
Roosevelt.
That's right, Roosevelt. He actually ignored that, and boom, allowed Pearl Harbor to happen. Essentially, which was, with 9/11, they say, well, 9/11 will be the new Pearl Harbor. So it just goes to show you is that in order to get people on board with these wars, is that they hit them where it hurts, where like they get their emotions going, they get them angry, and when someone becomes angry, they're not rational, they're not thinking clearly, they're all over the place, and so it's easier to lead them towards these agendas of being violent and going to war and all that kind of stuff compared to just going to peace, right? And so these are all methods and tactics that they use on the public, on the random people like just me and you, that they prey on our emotions, and most people are not emotionally intelligent. Okay, if you really look at our society today, emotional intelligence is not a prevalent thing. Okay, it's people are out of control. They're emotionally distraught. They're more in fear than they're in a state of love. And so their vibrations are lowered and they're weakened, and so it's a lot easier to manipulate these people as compared to people that are in a state of love and they're informed and they're rational and they're composed about how they feel. Those people, well, it's a lot harder to get them on board to go to war. Like, I look at myself, people try to get me to be violent and stuff, and I'm always in a loving state of mind. I'm like, hey, no, like, let's empower each other, let's play some music, let's listen to a documentary, learn about spirituality, learn about good things. And so to get me to be violent is very hard because, I know better. I'm not out of control with my emotions. My emotions are not in control of me. I'm in control of my emotions. And so when you look at the masses, we are not in control. We are out of control. Big example, we don't even know about the law. We don't even know about anything. And when it comes to a real fight to go protest what's wrong, people don't even want to do anything about it. Why? Well, they feel powerless. They want to be led. They want to be told what to do, what to think, and so on. So this whole ISIS, crisis, well, it's the same thing. It's just, history repeating itself, but becoming more sophisticated as the years go by. And we're allowing it to keep going and going and going. And our brothers and sisters throughout the whole world, which we're all brothers and sisters, we all need water to drink. We all need healthy food, a healthy environment, some fresh air. We want to be comfortable. We want to be happy. We all want the same things, yet we're easily convinced that, well, we're more entitled than other people because, well, they believe certain other things and we believe this. We need to really start thinking about how we're more common than different, and once we start doing those things, there ain't going to be no wars, there ain't going to be no division and all this nonsense of, ISIS versus Americans and ISIS versus Britain, or all this war, all this division is just nonsense. It's not sane. It's not healthy.
Not at all.
Definitely. Well, for this brings me actually into my article what I've got here, which is Prince Charles raises Saudi blogger case. Don't know if you're familiar with this, and you too.
Something perhaps I was saying to Albert earlier on.
Well, Saudi authorities were widely criticised for jailing the blogger and condemning him to 50 lashes a week for 20 weeks. Try and zoom in on this. Okay. Prince Charles is thought to have raised the case of jailed blogger Raif Badawi with Saudi Arabia's new king. Mr. Badawi was accused of insulting Islam and sentenced to 10 years and 1,000 lashes after setting up a website for Saudi liberals. A source said the prince had broached the issue during lunch at a palace in Riyadh. It is understood the issue was raised by the prince during his meeting with King Salman, the source said. The reaction from the king was not unfriendly. The two men talked privately through an interpreter before the lunch and then sat together for the 40-minute meal. Mr. Badawi's first public flogging on 9th of January attracted international condemnation. This is the Prince Charles condemns IS video. I'll try and I've got no audio there, I don't think.
Before he arrived, Charles made no secret of his concern about the rise of extremism in the Middle East. For meeting with King Abdullah II and other religious leaders, he went further in his condemnation. In a speech, he said, "This initiative comes at a time when the situation in Iraq, Syria, and elsewhere could not be more desperate. I do not need to tell you, of course, the horrors that have been inflicted in the name of religion. were driven from their homes by individuals who perverted brutal misinterpretation of Islam.
We left there our homes, fortunes, and our jobs.
On Saturday night, the Prince had met a group of Christians in Iraq, everything they owned. He has long-standing links to Arab nations. Let's learn more about the threat now posed by the so-called Islamic
challenges for those millions of people who are inside Syria that we can't get.
At the Qatari refugee camp, thousands have help and they've left their homes. Prince Charles is no stranger about better faith, but his worries about extremism are also close to home. Revealed about young people being radicalised.
Values we hold dear. Born here, die. There is value. Frightening. Others from culture.
Despite his apparently good intentions, some believe he's recently overstepping the mark.
For some time, Charles has been gradually warming up the idea of trade over game, trade part of the allowed to get away with it. They've all found
The Prince's visit was planned long before Jordan stepped up as rights against SAS, and that's made it clear how he feels about military action is for dialogue and faith encouragement. We are not military.
Yes. So, he has so far received only the first 50 lashes after subsequent punishment were postponed. Prince Charles has been under pressure from Amnesty International UK to raise humanitarian concerns during his 6-day Middle East tour. The Prince knows the Saudi royal family well. Also, it says Kate Allen, Amnesty International UK Director, has said any diplomatic intercession by the Prince could help secure Mr. Badawi's freedom. The human rights organisation has also called on him to highlight the plight of foreign workers employed to build the infrastructure of the 2022 World Cup when he goes to Qatar. Prince has already visited Jordan on his tour, with Qatar and the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, still to come, which also brings me on to this article. Qatar undeterred by cheap oil plans, big projects. So there's no stopping him with the looks of things, unless the activist king will mention a few words while he's visiting. With the oil plunging down, nothing seems to be stopping on the construction side of things. So moving on. Church bans vicar from social media over the 9/11 Facebook post. The vicar who posted an article on the internet claiming that Israel was behind the September 11 terrorist attacks has been banned by the Church of England for speaking, writing, tweeting or blogging on the Middle East by the Church of England. The Telegraph reports the Reverend Dr. Stephen Sizer has also agreed as a complete prohibition on using any social media for at least 6 months. It is thought to be the first ban of its kind issued by the Church. But Dr. Sizer will be able to remain as priest in charge of his church parish in affluent Virginia Water, Surrey, and there are no current plans to defrock him. The ruling by the new Bishop of Guildford, the Right Reverend Andrew Watson, imposes one of the most sweeping sets of restrictions ever placed on a serving Church of England cleric. So what do you think of the article so far, Charles and Andy? Any?
Well, obviously, if you're in the church, then there's no such thing as freedom of speech.
Right.
With that particular chap. Well, I was saying to Albert earlier on that I think it's just lip service. What Prince Charles is doing has got to be seen to be saying something on behalf of the blogger who gets 50 lashes a week, is it, or something? You know, it's to be seen to be doing something. But I find it, you know,
Yeah.
if it has got some good intent, it's a little bit small and a little bit late in any of it, really. If there's any good deeds truly meant behind it, yeah.
It does go into more. It does mention quite a bit more, but you know, it's there on the newswire. If anybody wants to take a look.
Yeah, good site that newswire. I like that.
Okay, I think I've got.
I just got one thing to say about the whole thing about, you know, the freedom of speech and whether, you know, essentially when they do that, when they punish someone for speaking or saying something, you know, when you cut someone's tongue out, you're not necessarily calling them or proving that they're a liar. You're just showing that you actually fear that they have something to say that may be the truth that threatens you, you know?
Yeah.
And so when you see people are going to extreme measures of, you know, silencing people and punishing them for speaking something, you know, well, if it's not true, then it shouldn't bother you, right? It shouldn't really affect you. But if it's the truth, then of course, you know, if you're the liar and someone's speaking the truth, then you have more reason to be violent, right?
Yeah,
so,
I thought they had the protection of the word conspiracy theorist, Charles. You know, apparently if you speak a load of baloney, they brand you a conspiracy theorist. I thought that was their weapon of choice, you know, but obviously they can't use that anymore, and they're now doing direct action for people who have got a free-thinking mind and exercise their freedom of speech. So, you know, obviously conspiracy theorist doesn't wash anymore, you know.
He says here it follows a complaint by the Board of Deputies of British Jews 10 days ago after Dr. Sizer posted a link on his Facebook page to an article entitled 9/11 Israel Did It, adding the comment that it raises so many questions. So he's got himself in.
Well, it's a bit. It reminds me of the judiciary system in a way in most of the Western world. Is that look, and when the judge turns around and says, "One more word from you, and I'll hold you in contempt of court." For what? For asking questions?
well, exactly. That's the thing. Is there's always this authority of, you know, you can't even debate, you can't even talk, you can't express or try to bring up, and even facts. When you see them get, you know, start using threats of violence or imprisonment or taking away your rights, then you know that they're in the wrong. Like, people should see that and say, look, you know, if you shouldn't be threatened by things that are not true. If it's not true, then don't feel threatened by it. You know?
Yeah. Like, call me a conspiracy theorist like you normally do, and let's have a good old laugh. You know?
Yeah. You know, we live in the world of illusion, and that's the problem. Is that most of our beliefs and everything that's happening in this world is all illusion. We all give credibility so easily to the banks and to the media and all this stuff, and we don't really do any investigating. So, you know, when people start threatening those illusions that, you know, we built our foundations on, then people get a little angry, they get a little fearful, they start becoming crazy in their way of thinking, as compared to when you're standing in love, standing in compassion, standing in the truth. You don't go there. You don't go to violent means. You don't go and start threatening people's liberties and things like that. You're like, well, I know the truth. You know, that's all that matters, is that I know it, and then my brother knows it, and so on, and we're growing from it, and we're leaving the example. As compared to other people, well, look, you know, you're standing in illusion and lies. Look how destructive you are. We can see it. You can't see it because you're standing in the illusion. You're up close. You know, when you look at something really close, you can't really see anything until you take a step back and like, oh, wow, now I can see it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's, you know,
Well,
It's
this-
insanity.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see this article here. It's a sneak and peek. Legislation could put your privacy at risk. This is in Virginia, in the States. It's called sneak and peek legislation, and it could be making its way to Virginia. The two bills, Senate Bill 919 and House Bill 1946, would grant local law enforcement agencies permission to search private records without a warrant. Essentially, the bills extend Patriot Act powers to the State Attorney General's office and allow local law enforcement agencies to seal administrative subpoenas. People would not be notified that authorities were looking through those records, including phone, computer, and financial records. People use their phone and the internet for all sorts of things. For them to just be able to check it without forewarning anyone, I don't know what they might find or how it may hold against me in the future, Christy Lewis from Norfolk said. There are other ways they could go about doing that. I don't think invading people's privacy is one of them. From Kenneth Townsend in Norfolk. The bills were proposed by Senator Jennifer Wexton and Delegate Jennifer McClellan. Not familiar with the people, but there's a little short 2-minute video here for those that are in this area in Virginia.
Might not be so private anymore if some Virginia lawmakers get their way.
They are calling it sneak and peek legislation, and state authorities would be able to go through your phone records, computer records, and financial records without having to get a warrant. Kayla Dorenzo spoke with a legal analyst who says this could be the future in Virginia.
I did, guys, and this bill would make it easier to get your search history and find out who you talked to and when. It has citizens obviously very concerned, and some legal experts as well.
Imagine the fact that your private communications with another party could be reviewed by authorities without you even knowing that it's happening.
Sounds frightening, but it could happen to you.
I don't agree with that at all.
That's total violation.
Right now, 2 bills in the Virginia General Assembly would give local law enforcement agencies permission to search private records without a warrant.
The best word of advice would be to just assume that you're being watched.
One of the bill's sponsors say this is purely a crime-fighting tool.
When they get a subpoena, Facebook has started to tell the account holder, I got this subpoena, and then the account holder immediately shuts that website down.
If you're able to look at these things from a law enforcement standpoint without the people knowing that they're being targeted, then the chances of you getting things that are relevant to your investigation are a lot higher.
But legal analyst Kevin Duffin says these bills raise some questions.
Who's to say what is the criminal behavior?
Searches can already be done with warrants granted from federal authorities.
It makes you wonder, why is this being passed on the state level? What is it that the state authorities are attempting to find?
These bills are gaining momentum, but not necessarily with the people.
People use their phone or the internet for all sorts of things, and for them to just be able to do it without warning us and things like that, I don't know what they may find or, how it may hold against me in future references.
Kayla Dorenzo, 13 News Now.
Just adds on to the many other things like the Herod clause, and it's just constant stuff in there.
Well,
No, there's no privacy. Say again, Charles.
Oh, sorry. Just more examples of people that are out of control in the state of fear that want to control other people. They just want to control information. They fear that people are out to get them. That everyone's an enemy. Everyone is talking conspiracy, all this stuff. Well, doesn't that raise the question? Is maybe there is some truth to it. Maybe a lot of people are actually talking more and they're actually communicating and they're seeing that there are actually conspiracies happening. And so
Prince Charles seems to think that's the case.
Well, that's what I mean. It just goes to show you, right? Like they're just paranoid. Why? Because they're creating the paranoia. They're creating all these problems. They're creating. They actually know that they're causing people to be talking amongst each other, and now they want to revolt, and that it's like, hey, I can't.
It's like a bait trap, isn't it? You put a bait car out there and just wait for someone to come by. It's dangling carrot sort of thing, isn't it?
Why?
Well, if it's legit, right, they must be absolutely shitting them with all this legislation, like this next thing you're going to pick up. I mean, the only thing I say about what they say, oh, well, if you haven't got anything to hide, well, if you knew that, you wouldn't be asking it, would you?
That's it. Just before I move on to the other one, I just want to finish off with, yesterday I did Flux News talking about the Samsung Spy TVs, and I've now researched and tracked down the company that's involved with voice recognition, and it's a company called Nuance. And if you read here, it says Nuance provides tailored form-based customer service solutions and speech-driven agency directory applications that are helping government officers and agencies deliver cost-effective and differentiated service in the midst of budget constraints, staffing shortfalls, and increasing citizen and constituent expectations. So if anybody does want to look into this company, Nuance, they're the ones that are receiving all your recording, your audio through your smart TVs. So do look into that.
Oh yeah, I heard about that, PJ, the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to this. Activists work to block internet legislation in Paraguay. Activists in Paraguay contend Congress is drafting legislation that will force internet service providers to retain customers' personal information for 1 year. A bill they say could be used to control citizens' behaviour. The bill, known as the Data Traffic Retention Act, has already passed in the Senate and requires ISPs to store systematic metadata, which includes technical details such as coordinates, times, and other information associated with photos, songs, text, or files exchanged by Internet users for 12 months. They are drafting intrusive legislation that violates privacy, and with the excuse of going after some criminal activities, they will come up with something that is a threat to all citizens. Maria Carmen Sequeira, a 30-year-old lawyer specializing in copyright law and director of the non-governmental organization TEDIC, told EFE. TEDIC is a pioneer in defending citizens' rights on the internet in Paraguay. This law would allow the monitoring of what a citizen is doing, what websites he visits, and what type he reads messages, where, etc. Sakura and Jasmine Acuna, TEDx's 27-year-old director of projects, are leading a campaign to block the legislation that has spread over the internet. The activists launched an effort through social media against what they call parawebs, a term that combines the concept of a website and the Guyana noun pareg, a term for snitchers and police infiltrators during the 1954 to 89 Stroessner dictatorship in Paraguay. The campaign went viral, fueled by fresh memories of the terror archives compiled by the Stroessner regime and other military dictatorships in the region, containing tons of documents about citizens' political affiliation and other personal information, and which were used to persecute hundreds of thousands of people in South America. The bill looked to many people as Terror Archives 2.0, she said. The European Union's Court of Justice, and his favourite word, has already banned the system for storing metadata, and it does not exist in the other Southern Cone countries. Acuna said TEDx would continue promoting human rights, transparency, and citizens' participation and fighting against parawebs, while committees in the lower house of Congress debate the bill before sending it to the floor for a vote. EFE. Yeah, so apologies if I didn't pronounce any of these names right. I hope you got the gist of that message.
A few tricky names in there, PJ.
Yeah, I'm not very good with it, but hey, if it makes people have a laugh, we have to pronounce it then.
Listen,
It's all worth it.
I had no idea how to pronounce that Ukrainian town. It was
No idea myself.
It was quite simple, I think, but just sometimes I blank. But yeah, actually, again, this is it. You said my favourite word, judiciary. Well, I think in generation times it won't be judiciary because they won't need courts of law because people.
I don't think they need taxes. I think it's all going to be like it's going to be like a penal system.
Yes, of course.
Penalised.
You won't have any rights. You'll have no rules or laws that you can argue and debate whether you broke a rule. You will just be in a system that you'll be born into. That you know that you must. Your job is to obey the pharaoh, and nothing else matters.
Well, it's essentially they're trying to choke creativity, to choke people's ability to be free, and like look at your imagination. If you just close your eyes and you try to, there's no limit, right? But in this reality, there's limits, but also there's a lot of freedoms that we have that we can able to explore with and go and try to see things and try to go over certain plateaus, right? But it almost seems like they're trying to choke all of that, so people are afraid now to communicate and talk and say anything, so therefore they can better control this, the whole network of, the internet and so on. Because if you really look at this tool called the internet, I mean, it's one of the best things in our recent history to unite a lot of people. It's brought people together. You're able to see how people live in other parts of the world and understand and have more empathy and knowledge about what's really going on. So in a way, they created this tool to be able to communicate, and then they see that, well, hey, we can't even control it, and we've let it go so far, and we've been trying to control it as much as we can, and we can't. And now it means that if we can't control this, that means we can't control the people anymore, and they know this. So if you look at the establishments, corporations, governments, whatever you want it, okay, like the elites of the world, the people essentially that have all the money and influence and power, these people are afraid of us, essentially. And that's what all these symptoms right here that you're seeing about trying to control all this, there's the symptoms of fear that they fear us to unite in the sense that, hey, the more information we're going to share with each other, the more we're going to communicate and say things, the more that we'll be able to be aware of their existence and how they operate and what they've been doing to us. And so therefore, let's squash that resistance. Let's choke the information highways. So therefore, people are actually in fear as well to actually talk about anything. About, like, look, right now we're talking about all this right now. But imagine if all these legislations and laws come into play. Well, you think we're going to be talking about this? Are we going to be debating? Are we going to try to explore with these ideas? Of course not, right?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Well, that's why I used it to wrap my articles up. That's my final one.
Well, PJ, what Charles has said is right, because the thing is, but what is the mentality? I just don't get it, I just don't get any of this, really, when I think I lay down in bed at night before I climb into my spaceship to get out of this place every night, which I must do, which I look forward to every night. Right, the thing is, why in the world would any human being want to kill creativity? Why would you want to live in a world where there is no creativity?
Exactly. That's what we're here.
What on earth is that mentality? I don't get it, Charles.
Well, essentially what it is, it's sociopathic and psychopathic mentality. Is essentially people that are in the, because there's two emotions, right? The main emotions is love and fear, right? Love helps you grow, and fear doesn't help you grow. It paralyzes you. Okay, fear is good for certain things, as to, okay, well, you go in the dark, you fear it because, well, you don't know anything, right? So if you're in the total ignorance of something, you have less confidence, you tend to take smaller steps, you're not going anywhere as fast as compared to when you're in the light. Well, everything is revealed to you, which is not always fun, right? Because then if everything's revealed, then it takes away the challenge, right? So we need to kind of find that balance of saying, well, look, okay, yes, we have to fear certain things because it keeps us alert and more attentive, but at the same time, we have to put a lot of love into this and saying, like, look, why are we here? Well, we love to create. Why do we make love? Why does a man and woman have sex together? It's to create an offspring and to help see it grow and to love it and to give it all the nutrients and all the love and everything that you've gathered so far about this beautiful thing called life, and to help them grow and be able to be creative. And also with that creative energy, you evolve. You know, you hear a lot about these creationists versus evolutionists and all this stuff. It's like, look, you need both. You create, the more you practice it, the more you evolve. The more you play your guitar, the more you learn about the logic behind how it works and the sounds that come out of it, the more you evolve and become a better creator. And so, you know, all this stunting of our growth of creation with, you know, censoring the internet and putting out all these laws of limiting us from being able to grow our own food and gathering rainwater and having access to all these things that allow us to grow, clearly shows that there's people out there that are living in fear, that don't want to grow. They're afraid of it. They're afraid of growth. They're afraid of people uniting, the consciousness growing further than it is. Why? Because they're comfortable where they are. They're in their fucking lazy boy, watching the game or whatever it is that they are comfortable. They're in that little spot where anyone that comes around to threaten them from having to get up and do something and work at life and be creative, then
it's crazy. It's crazy though, because you know, if that's the mentality of the elite or psychopaths or whatever you want to call whoever, who's going to do their Rembrandt or their Picasso hanging on the wall? Who's going to write the Beethoven symphony or the music they love to listen to? They do like these things, but if you're going to kill creativity, who's going to provide this for them to enjoy? I don't get it.
Well, and that's the thing, is that I think they're trying to, you know, control it. Is that, you know, when you look at people that are psychopathic or sociopaths or narcissists or whatever, right? These people are all about controlling. They like to control others than themselves. Like if they can't control you, they freak out, they lose it, so they'll use violence, they'll use all sorts of measures and means. Because why? Well, it's because they're in control of and they have their belief and their environment. They want to be like a god, essentially. They want to be the ones that's praised and looked at as being the one that's going to offer solutions and that jumps higher and kicks better and does all this stuff. They want all that attention. They're self-obsessed in thinking that they're the best, and so if anyone that comes around and threatens any of that, well, they lash out at those people. They want to bring them down instead of bringing them up and saying, hey, look, we're going to get there together. It's not me that's doing all the work. It's not just me. It's not because I'm the Queen of England that I deserve this, and that I'm going to change the world. I'm going to give the world peace. No, we're going to learn about all this stuff together, because the more we work together and learn about each other, the more solutions and the more options that we have as compared to limiting ourselves to the very few that are actually living in the state of fear, that are not wanting to grow, that are staying in the dark and taking the little tippy toes as compared to the ones that are looking for the light and saying, hey, wow, look, there's some light here, I can see better, I can actually see a little bit clearly, I can manipulate my environment better, I can understand how this works together. And, hey, I don't know everything, I don't have all the answers, but together we'll get to some of them, and who wants to know everything, right? Who wants to have all the answers to life? Life gets boring after that. It's no fun.
Yeah, it certainly does, yeah.
We might get a few comments from the viewers on that subject for you, Charles. But that's me done. That's all my articles, guys.
Oh, that's good. Thanks very much, PJ. Thank you, Charles. That was
yeah, likewise, guys.
That was a lengthy stint, I think.
That was what?
It was quite a long evening for the news. It's normally about 40 minutes.
Yeah, between 40 minutes, an hour and 40 minutes. But we will be back tomorrow for some more Flux news. So do join us then and don't miss out.